Hi, everybody. My name is Milton, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a summary from Chapter 3, Issues in Language Learning, and Chapter 4, Popular Methodology, from the book The Practice of English Language Teaching. To start, let's talk a little bit about the introduction from chapter 3. It starts by saying that children acquire a language subconsciously through massive exposure from adults, their parents, and maybe other relatives around them, and also other children around them. However, this ability to absorb language and context and to understand it does not last forever. Around puberty, they start developing another ability for abstraction, which makes them better learners but less able to respond to language instinctively. This is why researchers of second language acquisition, SLA, want to understand if the processes of learning for young children could be the same for other people. Unfortunately, there is no easy answer. Theories cannot seem to agree with one another. It would be really helpful to have or to read some research and know how to teach and what methods to apply. But that would be impossible because each class is going to be different. Despite this, as future teachers, we should read all theories and develop the ability to assess which ones are better to be applied to our students. Some methods or some theories come from two popular linguists, Chomsky and Krashen. As for Chomsky, he says that language is an innate human capacity. For him, we have some sort of universal grammar programmed into all of us. And all we need is to combine it with input, with practice, with conversation. But for Krashen, input is enough. For him, we acquire language subconsciously through a spontaneous conversation in a relaxed setting, and it is learned when we study it. Although both findings are great, they don't answer the question about what is the best way to acquire a language. So let's continue learning a little more about these theories and methods. Explicit and implicit knowledge. Implicit means that we can learn it subconsciously, just the way infants do. And explicit is the opposite. And it is learned in language forms like words, fixed phrases, structures, aspects of pronunciation, and others. It can also be learned in form, meaning it is not too focused on grammar. Richard Schmidt, he also thinks that form is a very good way, but we should do it through noticing, meaning that there should be someone guiding the students for to make the process more effective. Language is forming habits. Skinner developed the theory of behaviorism, meaning that language acquisition can be conditioned. And that means that a lot of repetition is used. However, to make repetition a bit more beneficial, it could be through repetitive games and play. But only that is not enough. Another one, language is communication. Another idea comes from Dick Albright and his colleagues that advises having students involved in solving communication problems in the target language, which will provoke language learning automatically. This is another form, meaning not too focused on grammar. However, another researcher, Michael Swan, doubts that this is fully effective. Language is grammar and vocabulary. As you may know, a vast majority of course books used around the world are mainly organized on grammatical lines. This structure has some problems because the order things are taught is not necessarily the order in which they are learned. The issue lies in the fact that no one has mapped out a generalizable natural order for all learners, meaning there is no map. It's not like Google Maps and you know where to go when you just put the address. No, it's not like that. There's no way to have just one way because each class, like I said before, is going to be different. Each student is going to be different, and a lot has to do with different aspects of their life and also age. When it comes to vocabulary, it is better to focus on vocabulary with beginner learners, so at the beginning, and then as they advance, you can focus more on grammar, according to Rod Ellis. Hopefully, in the future, grammar syllabus will apply a more communicative approach for the content to be more meaningful for students. Only English. Should the classroom be an English only environment? Maybe. The problem is that this approach is not that effective. Students will translate anyway in their heads. So it would be good to have some sort of balance and allow students to use their first language up to a point, not to overuse it. Another important thing to say is that for learning to be effective is to make it humanist. It is very important to engage with the students and help them feel positive. Their feelings are key for progressing. If they are not feeling well or if they don't feel engaged, they will slowly progress. So, in chapter 3, we find many different ideas about language acquisition. The best we can do is to combine those that we consider more useful for our students, keeping in mind that it is not only about teaching but engaging with them too. As for chapter 4, in the introduction, it talks about that over the centuries, educationalists have tried to come up with particular methods to help teachers understand how they should teach. There are many available methods. Some become unfashionable, meaning they are no longer popular, they are no longer used, but some of its procedures and techniques can still be used. But before we deciding what methods to use, it is very important to know what a method is. We have to be able to differentiate between an approach, a method, a procedure, and a technique. An approach refers to the theories about the nature of language and language learning. Method is what you put into practice in the class, what you do. The procedure is an order sequence of techniques. And technique, it's a particular activity you apply to make the learning process more meaningful. Let's talk about some methods. Three and a half methods. In the 19th century, a method that came into place was grammar translation method. This method mostly treated language at the level of sentence only and sentence analyzing as well. Then at the end of the 19th century, we have the direct method, focused on dialogues. Then later in the 20s, 1920s, and 1930s, something that became really popular was the audiolingualism. That method relied a lot on repetition. The three of these methods are somehow still used now. Now we can say that the last two are maybe more used than the grammar translation method. However, more methods appear with the passing of time. Let's talk a little bit about those. In the 70s and 80s, there was a communicative revolution that gave birth to methods like task based learning and communicative language teaching. The CTL, communicative language teaching, is basically focused on communication skills, so dialogues were used a lot. It was meaningful because it would provoke students to participate and the teacher would intervene when necessary. As for task based learning, it answers the question how and it follows an order. So for this, it has a sequence. Pre-task stage. The teacher introduces a topic. The task cycle stage. They the students start working on it. And before in the pre-task stage, the teacher explains the instructions. In the task cycle stage, they work on it, the teacher supervises, and then at the end there is a language focused stage where they maybe ask questions or discuss the topic. Later on, we have the lexical approach. This method advises that we can learn phrases as chunks and only use the grammar to make new phrases when and if that is appropriate. We have the PPP, presentation, practice, and production, which basically means that the language is presented and it could be in a way of pictures. Then the students practice the language through oral repetition. And finally, students can produce the language by making sentences of their own. Other procedures exist, but PPP is still used in one way or another all over the world. So, which method? What approach? Teachers should identify learning as a puzzle. So each puzzle is different. So what you have to do is to apply different things to be able to solve it. So your class, each class we're going to have is going to be different. And we have to understand what are the skills that we want our students to improve. As for course books influence the teacher's decisions about what to teach because a lot of institutions use them and you have to stick to them. The pros about it is that they are attractively presented, they are very eye catching. They could be a relief because you don't have to worry about preparing your classes and everything is already there. They are good for students to review whenever they need to. They can check the book anytime they want. They include a variety of procedures for the teacher to use the material effectively. Cons, they block creativity because you cannot make your own materials. They are suitable for a particular group of students. They rely too much on PPP and they can be boring. And how to use course books? Well, omit things that don't fit, replace things with your own choices, adapt and add things. You can also add notes to the teacher's book and discuss the material with other teachers. And some things that you can take into account when choosing a good course book is price, how it looks, the instructions, the methodology, the syllabus, and so on. As a summary, we can say that choosing the best method is not going to be easy, but what should be taken into account is the student's interests and the objectives that want to be accomplished. Course books should not be ignored, but used and selected wisely. Some of the best materials to use in class are created by the teacher and can be reused if they are meaningful to the students. However, with the advancement of technology, English language teaching is about to change forever. So, this will bring teachers back to trying to find the best method possible to engage with students and make their teaching experience valuable. Teachers will be able to learn new technological methods and combine them with those they see as more suitable for their classes. That is the key, being adaptable to change. Thank you very much for your attention.